Did the CDC cover up COVID vaccine myocarditis risk? New emails show that they did. How about a booster shot, everyone? Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom. How important it remains that you support us and how we love you for your loyalty and for not living in fear. Thank you. And for being able to discern truth from fiction. Remember when it was denied that COVID vaccines potentially could increase risks of myocarditis? Well, it did happen. Check in with Dr. Mandy Cohen. How about a pack of lies? Oh, no thanks.
Hi everyone, Dr. Mandy Cohen from the CDC. I wanted to talk today about the COVID-19 vaccine and kids.
Well, good. That should be a short conversation.
While we know kids are less impacted than adults from COVID, the unfortunate news is that kids can still get sick, and sometimes really sick from COVID-19, just like adults.
You're a scientist. How sick do you mean? Really sick? My God, that is scientific. Well, thanks for the update. And as long as there are no risks?
In fact, half of the very young kids who ended up in the intensive care unit with COVID had no underlying medical reason to make us think they would get sick. They didn't have asthma or another underlying condition. The COVID virus just made them really sick. Second, the vaccine is safe for all kids over 6 months. Millions of doses have been given to children, and their safety has been closely tracked. The benefits to children and teens outweigh the risks.
You just said there were no risks.
The vaccine is safe for all kids over 6 months.
Should be hard to outweigh the no risk. Well, there's no risks. Oh, it's outweighed. I mean, that doesn't weigh anything. I mean, I'm not a scientist, though.
Especially the risks to kids if they get COVID-19. For example, teen boys have been up to 5 times as likely to have heart inflammation after having a COVID infection than after getting vaccinated.
Listen to that smiling fact and note the peculiar facial expression afterwards. The eyes closed, the lips closed, perhaps because something is being concealed. We'll get into that a little later and exactly who that group of teens that had heart disease were.
Now, I have 2 daughters, ages 9 and 11, and we plan to get them both the updated COVID vaccine.
Well, that's good because that's your choice as their mother. And I agree that all parents should be able to make those kind of choices for their children rather than mandating it at the level of the state.
Talk to your child's pediatrician or nurse practitioner about the updated COVID vaccine today.
They're certainly going to tell you what we tell them to tell you because it's illegal for them not to.
And they can get their flu vaccine at the same time.
Lovely little check-in there with Dr. Cohen. And now here's a check-in with some terrifying facts that you won't get from the government. This is from Public. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, is encouraging everyone 6 months and older to get the newest COVID-19 booster. It's funny because like encouraging a 6-month-old. Come on, take a shot. I honestly don't know what you're talking about. The benefits for children and young people far outweigh the risks, argues CDC Director Mandy Cohen. Teen boys have been up to 5 times as likely to have heart inflammation after having a COVID infection than after getting vaccinated, Cohen said. Interesting. But the best available evidence does not back up Cohen's claims. The CDC director is relying on a highly flawed study published in the CDC's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly. I read it every week. It's a bit depressing some weeks. Oh, these people died. These people died. Well, better tune in next week. It's true that this study found teen boys at ages from 12 to 17 had 2 to 6 times greater risk of heart complications after COVID infection compared to after vaccination. But the study only looked at electronic health records which were limited to teenagers who had been admitted to the hospital or who visited a doctor. This means the subjects of the study were not representative of the total number of boys who got COVID, the vast majority of whom never went to the doctor. So it was a subset. There's everyone who got COVID and didn't go to a doctor. They're not in the study. They're fine. Then there's people who got COVID and went to the doctor, presumably because something was wrong. I would say that's quite a biased subset. And other papers show vastly different results. A study from the American Heart Association on myocarditis, which means inflammation of the heart muscle, found that in men younger than 40 years old, the number of excess myocarditis events per million people was higher after a second dose of mRNA 1273 than after a positive SARS-CoV-2 test. So the opposite of what you've just had a gentle, lovely video explaining to you. A Nordic study of 23 million people found that for young men ages 16 to 24, post-vaccination myocarditis rates were 6 to 28 times higher than myocarditis rates after COVID infection. Seems like a pretty sizable study. Seems like the information's less favourable if, for example, you had some ancillary benefit like selling a product or establishing dominion, and yet that information doesn't seem to have its own friendly video, does it? Except for this one. Hello, welcome to Check In with Russell Brand. Be very careful about the information that you're given because there may be, in fact always will be, an intention behind it and an agenda. For example, right now what I'm trying to get you to do is question the information you're given by the legacy media and the state and question ways that they operate with one another. I'm going to be telling my 2 daughters and my very young son never to trust anyone in authority unless it's proven that they have spiritual principles and values that go beyond self-interest. You little scamps. The study also found there was 0 myocarditis cases after COVID infection in males 12 to 15. 0? That's an impressive figure, but let me weigh that up against the risks. Oh yeah, it doesn't weigh anything because it's 0. The consequences of vaccine-caused myocarditis can be serious. A review of clinical records found that 96% of people under 30 diagnosed with post-vaccination myocarditis were hospitalised. For some patients, symptoms persist. In one study from the US military, 7 out of 23 myocarditis patients continued to have chest discomfort weeks after vaccination. The mainstream media simply amplifies the propaganda of the state, whereas we want to interrogate and investigate the facts so that we can bring you truth, so that we can mutually awaken together, which frankly is impossible for us to do without our commercial partners and sponsors, and by God are they loyal. Sticker Meal. These guys are bringing you a set of new stickers. I mean, I don't actually even understand how their business model works, but there are 6 fantastic designs that you can have for nothing. Look, I'm one of them. Check it out. There are 6 stunning designs, including that one, that are only available in this pack, and they're all made with Sticker Mule's magic touch, and by God are they sticky. Sticker Mule has 10,000 of these packs, that's right, 10,000. 10,000, ready to deliver to your address absolutely free. It seems to me that there's literally nothing to lose. Just go to stickermule.com/Russell and fill out the form. That's all you got to do. Go to stickermule.com/Russell, get sent these things. They're supporting us, you're supporting us. Let's get some stickers out of this thing. Let's go back to the egregious, awful propaganda of the mainstream media that like to pretend that what they're doing is actual news, when what they're doing is the amplification of propaganda without inquiry and question. Although Cohen insists that children are at high risk of serious illness, the mean infection fatality rate of COVID for people under 20 years old is 0.0003%. Did you hear all those noughts? That's a lot of noughts. You can't make much money from noughts. And hospitals have grossly inflated the reported number of children with severe COVID. One paper found that hospital records overcounted the number of paediatric COVID hospitalizations by at least 40%. Do you remember when they use actual Sesame Street to try and get you to take vaccinations?
You were super duper today, getting your COVID vaccine, Elmo.
It's extraordinary the level of propaganda that they will deploy in order to pursue an agenda and manage the information space. What's more, a mounting body of evidence shows that the CDC and the White House chose to ignore and cover up evidence of a significant myocarditis safety signal in early 2021, putting young people at risk of serious adverse events. How did this happen? On the 27th of April 2021, then Director of the CDC, Rochelle Walensky, stated, "We've not seen any reports of post-vaccination myocarditis," but this was a false statement at the time. Journalist Zachary Steiber of the Epoch Times obtained internal CDC emails for a Freedom of Information Act request. As usual, information that's only given over under incredible scrutiny and pressure and the use of the actual Freedom of Information Act. A Nordic study of 23 million people ignored, a biased study of a subset that already plainly have medical conditions or challenges at least because they've made an inquiry to a doctor, they were under medical care, is used as information that's verifiable. What does that tell you? I'll tell you, you know already, let me know in the chat. Just they get information that suits what they want to happen anyway, then they bombard you with that information. And if there's information that's like, hang on a minute, that might not be true actually, they ignore it, they diminish it, they deplatform it, they shut it down. That's how this works. We know that now. In fact, you can apply this to almost any news story. Who benefits from that? Is there some reason why they would be saying these things? It's extraordinary how consistent it is. When Walensky claimed not to have seen any reports, there were dozens of reports in the US vaccine adverse event reporting system. Wow, you'd think you'd look in there like, are there any adverse reactions? Do we have some sort of US adverse event reporting system? Yeah, well, let's not look in there. Tell me how those sick kids are getting on. They're still sick. Is it with COVID? Yeah, with. Not from, but with. Right, well, just make sure you keep that distinction opaque and confusing. Listen, I get all of my information from Morbidity and Mortality Weekly. Not only is the information very reliable and convenient, it always cheers me up to read about those deaths. Plus, a very handy TV guide. Although we can't know for sure if Walensky had seen reports of post-vaccine myocarditis, a US government memorandum from March 2021, also obtained by Stieber, stated there were 27 cases of myocarditis, myopericarditis, and pericarditis, inflammation of lining around the heart, on VAERS. The US government conducted its VAERS, or VAERS, search on February the 23rd, 2021. It's not clear who wrote the memo, and CDC refused to answer any questions on the matter. But Walensky was copied on multiple threads discussing myocarditis, Stieber writes. She responded to one of the threads saying the information was super helpful. This is super helpful. Not when I've got old morbidity and mortality to read my way through. What about the VAERS? Stop showing me that. I'll just put those adverse reaction reports in my special filing cabinet under the desk there and keep it nice and warm. The CDC, notes Stieber, was warned by Israel on February the 28th, 2021 about a large number of myocarditis cases after Pfizer COVID-19 vaccination documents obtained by the Epoch Times show. Internally, the warning was designated as high importance and set off a review of US data. The Israeli Ministry of Health requested a joint meeting with the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and the CDC to respond to this trend. The Israeli National Focal Point is noticing a large number of reports of myocarditis, particularly in young people, following the administration of the Pfizer vaccines, the email stated. At this point, Pfizer had only made about $50 billion in profit. Israel was reporting post-vaccination myocarditis already in January 2021, noted Dr. Tracy Beth Herg, an epidemiologist at the University of California, San Francisco. They reported 2 deaths associated with it in April 2021. So it seems they were pretty stringently ignoring information that might not be helpful to the continuation of their agenda, but that's just what I think. Let me know in the chat what you think. I think this was a case of Dr. Walensky stating what she was told she should say, Herg said. I'm not sure how she would have been unaware of the Israeli and Department of Defense cases, and if she was aware, she should easily have been able to see that the rate of cases reported was well above the baseline expected rate in a short couple of week post-vaccination time frame. Emails obtained by Daily Clout suggest that the White House may have asked about cardiac events in 2021, but the CDC reassured White House staff that it was not a concern. In one April 19, 2021 email, a CDC staff member wrote, Ann S. is on the deputy's call with the White House right now and is asking if there's been any signal with pericarditis and mRNA vaccines. They knew that, they were discussing that, continued and still yet continue to deny that association and continue to right now, literally recently, present information as if that's not a problem, lying in the most glib and extraordinary ways about their health and risks for your children. This is an ongoing scandal that doesn't get investigated or reported on. People don't spend years looking into this, do they? Except for like the kind of journalists that we're using here from Public. Why is that? What is the agenda? What on earth is happening? Answered Tom Shipakuro, director of the CDC's Immunization Safety Office, Department of Defense and Israeli MOH think they have a signal for myocarditis with mRNA vaccines, but there is potentially a lot of ascertainment bias in the DoD data. We don't have any evidence to suggest a signal or safety problem for myocarditis or pericarditis with mRNA vaccines. Some may argue that the CDC was right to keep concerns about myocarditis from the public because the agency had not detected the safety signal itself and had reasons to suspect that the reports from Israel and the Defense Department were flawed. But such an argument would require the CDC to conduct thorough safety surveillance. If they had concerns that that information was flawed, they should conduct their own studies, surely. Yet, as Stieber discovered through his exchanges with the agency, the CDC did not begin its proportional reporting ratio statistical analysis until 2022. Stieber also found that the CDC's vSafe self-reporting system did not include a category for myocarditis myocarditis reports. How the hell are we going to keep down these myocarditis reports? Well, like, what if we just didn't have a category for that? Right, the same way as we don't have a category for being hit in the face with an onion. That's right. Are people being hit in the face with onions? Not yet. Are they getting myocarditis? All these things could be happening. I can't have categories for everything. Now let's get your kids vaccinated. Against onions? Yeah, why not? This means that VSafe was not able to collect survey reports of myocarditis. There are no problems with myocarditis. Have you got the facility to collect them? Next question, anyone? By May 28, 2021, emails suggest Walensky had briefed the White House on myocarditis. Dr. Walensky had mentioned a couple of updates on TTS, myocarditis, etc. on this morning's call, an advisor to the Deputy Coordinator of the White House COVID-19 response wrote. Any chance you know where we can find these papers stroke briefings? She asked CDC staff. It's a very casual way of communicating. Any chance to get behind these briefings? This is like people getting heart disease and dying and stuff. In June 2021, after most people who were planning to get vaccinated had received at least one dose, the CDC began publicly investigating myocarditis and speaking to the news media about it. It seems that it was a greater priority to ensure that people got vaccinated than to ensure that vaccinating was safe. Herc submitted a study to the CDC's journal, Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Review, that depressing little rag, that stratified the myocarditis risk by health, removed incidental hospitalizations, and provided a more accurate estimate of the incidence of post-vaccination myocarditis in teenage boys, even though that video is still referring to the obsolete one. Yet the CDC's journal rejected these significant results in August 2021. An editor told Herc, I ran this by the MMWR lead editorial staff members, they felt that while the report was interesting, they did not feel there was anything that was not already relayed. The study was eventually published in the European Journal of Clinical Investigation. People are making odd, arbitrary decisions about what's interesting and we're not putting that in the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Review. We've got to have a bigger fish to fry. We're doing a Sudoku on Wednesday. MMWR tends to publish studies that back the CDC's preferred policy. Herc told Public, bloody hell, that's not very helpful. Don't even bother having it then. Just broadcast what they're telling you, even when their findings do not align with the international data and publications. So the MMWR is bloody useless. They just put anything in there. I bet it doesn't even have morbidity and mortality in there. Walensky let months go by after receiving a warning from the Israeli Ministry of Health, and even when more information about myocarditis became public, her agency continued to downplay the risks. In November 2021, the Biden administration announced sweeping mandates for working age people, many of whom were in the group, men under 30, who would be most at risk. Oh my God, they mandated without telling people. Even I, after everything we've been through, can't really hold it together that when they were saying if you want to be a key worker in New York, or if you want to do these jobs, or you should be vaccinated, or you should be shamed, they had understood that there were risks and they were not conveying those risks to the public. This shows you, I think to a new degree, the lack of regard they have for your life, your safety, your dignity, your ability to make choices for yourself. This is actually, I think, in time we will come to regard this as a great stain on the character of our government and their agencies. And we'll see it, I think, as a pivotal moment when trust was lost forever by almost all but the most ardent of supporters of what has come to be known as the message. It may be that Walensky chose to disregard the safety signals from Israel and the military because she did not want to interrupt the vaccination campaign, which would be a terrible decision because the vaccination campaign isn't more important than the truth. We've got a perfectly good vaccination campaign. Why? These guys on a talk show have dressed up as little syringes. Guys, take the costume off. Oh, it took ages to get this. This bit's Velcro. After a few reports of blood clots following Johnson & Johnson shots, the CDC placed a temporary pause on the company's vaccine. How keen were they that we take these vaccines, that they're blood clots? Okay, pause. Just don't tell anyone about that. Get the vaccine costume on. Doing something similar for Pfizer or Moderna might have brought the whole vaccine rollout to a halt. We're going to have to stop this video here on this platform. To see it in its entirety, join us over on Rumble. That is our home now. If it's possible, press the red button when you get there and become a supporter, an awakened wonder, a member of our community. The government have shut down our ability to make money. We need you more than ever now. It's absolutely necessary so we can continue to move forward. But more important than any of that is if you can, please stay free.